Well, hey, everybody. Getting ready to record Mike in the Midwest, episode number, what number are we on? 149. Holy cow, how did that happen? 149. That's good because we started this during the pandemic, and that means we are getting far removed from that. So that's good news. All right, we're going to talk about the era of newspapers. Oh, we are live on YouTube, my phone just said, so that's good news. So if you're lucky enough to subscribe, you found out. You get to see it. All right, here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 149 of Mike in the Midwest, a mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, which you can find on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at beourguestpodcast.com and all of your favorite podcast aggregators. But you're a patron of the Be Our Guest podcast, so you know all that stuff. You've probably been listening since 2008. Or somewhere along the line, you found the show, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you for supporting the show. It means a lot to us, and I hope you're enjoying the new streams. We've switched over from our old streaming provider, which we used for a good bunch of years, to a new service that allows us to expand our reach. We now can broadcast our live feeds, and I don't know why we do video while we record the shows. It's just another way that if you're into this stuff, you can kind of watch behind the scenes. I'm a fan of that. I like to see how the sausage is made sometimes. And just so you know, the Mike in the Midwest is kind of a random stream of consciousness. This is just what I do. I get on here and I talk to you guys because you're the heart and soul of the Be Our Guest podcast. You support us. So it's kind of like our little weekly Tuesday talk, I guess. And one of the podcast networks that I listen to that I try to kind of model what we do after is the Twit Network. It's This Week in Tech, and it's a gentleman, Leo Laporte, that started podcasting way back in 2005. And before that, he had a cable TV show called what was it called? Call for Help. It was like the show in the 90s where he called. He was on cable TV, and you could call him and ask questions about your PC. This was back in the days like of Windows 3.1, and how to fix things and like that stuff like that. And he started podcasting, and he does video streams of all his shows, even though he focuses on an audio podcast. That's his meat and potatoes, like we are. But I think it's kind of fun, and I think you can make more of a connection with your podcasters if you can see them doing their shows. Just jump in to see what they look like, and every once in a while see what's their studio look like, what's going on there, their guests. And I think it's kind of fun to have this either after the fact, like, because we always connect with our guests. So the past couple of weeks, how cool has it been the past couple of weeks to have Sandra and Melissa, both from different parts of Australia, come on the podcast and share their trips. Totally random that they were booked. They were actually booked 2 weeks apart on the schedule, but we had a scheduling snafu. So I had to work them around, and they were back to back then. And to be able to talk with them, and I was talking with Dr. Kai, one of our great supporters here at the Be Our Guest podcast, about this. Zero lag. It was like I was talking to them in the next room. And it was just an amazing conversation to talk Disney. And I mean, think about how Disney brings people together, right? These people, these great ladies on the other side of the world, Disney fans. We all love Disney. I'm in Missouri. You might be in North Carolina. You might be in Texas. You might be in Wisconsin. You might be in California or, South Dakota, wherever you are today. Maryland. I don't know where you are today. But the thing is, we love Disney as Americans, or folks right here in this part of the world. But I mean, it's a global thing. And it was so fun to talk to folks that live so far away, and think about the travel. I mean, this is something these ladies, it's not trivial, and when I think about, because I think when I go to Florida, it's a big deal, like to get on an airplane, to go to the airport, to pack. I think that's like a big deal. And then when I thought about it after I spoke with these two ladies and their travel, a 2.5 hour flight is nothing compared to what they do. Like their flight from LAX to Orlando was like just a little hop, skip, and a jump. Like they were there at that point, which is amazing. Cause like when I flew just half of that, when I flew from LAX to St. Louis, I was like, "Ooh, it's a long flight." So it's all about perspective, but it's really cool how the Disney community can bring people together, and it can help you to meet people that you would have never, ever met. And that's what I love about the Be Our Guest podcast, personally, from my side of things. And it's because I've got to meet folks just like you, either virtually. Some of you guys I've never met, but I've talked to millions of times through emails, through tweets, just just virtually. We've had many conversations, and luckily many of you I've met in person many times at Disney races, just at the Disney parks. A lot of you guys we've sailed on cruises with Disney Cruise Line, and I consider you guys real, great friends. And how lucky is that? Because I'll tell you what, I haven't traveled much in my life. I'm from the dead center of the United States. Didn't go on any vacations really as a kid too much. And my world is pretty small where I'm from. You don't see a lot of folks when you live in Missouri. You don't see a lot of folks passing through. People don't vacation in St. Peters, Missouri. People just don't come here for vacation. People leave here to go to vacation, but people don't come here on vacation. So the fact that I get to meet people through the podcast from all over, from different places and different beliefs and different ethnicities and all that stuff, it is such a cool blessing. It's awesome. And it is so, I never thought I'd talk to somebody from Australia in my life, or, and Messiah was my friend over in Japan. Like I got to hang with her on a cruise and she rode with my family to and from the port from Walt Disney World. And, she had a big liking with Mallory when she was very young. I mean, it's such a special thing in podcasting and technology. I know people are down on technology sometimes, but I think technology is a cool thing. You got to look at it in the right way. Trust me, technology can be a terrible thing. I hate that Mallory's always on TikTok because it's like, dude, put the phone down and live your life. But I mean, it's one of those things. You got to take the good with the bad. Technology has brought a lot to my life. I mean, a lot. I get to do this and get to pretend that I'm, radio guy, which was a dream of mine as a kid. I had a little record player when I was a little kid, like 3 or 4. I got a Fisher Price record player for a gift, like for a birthday or something. I remember it was like kind of cream colored and orange with like an orange arm for the record player. And I would get little, like, I don't even know if they might have been Disney books. There were little books that had a record with them, and the record would have the story, and you'd have the book, and it'd make a little sound, you'd change the page. And I used to love those. But I used to, like pretend like I was a radio DJ, because back then I guess DJs played 45s. Actually, they did, because when I started DJing at the skating rink when I was 14, we had 245 record players. That's what we played the music on, the skating rink, when I was 14. That's how old Mike is. And now I get to live my dream of pretending kind of like I worked in radio. Now I always wanted to work in radio, but I think my dad kind of didn't want me to because of the instability of the position. You could be a really good radio host and then find out that if your numbers aren't great, you walk in the next day and you're fired. Because my dad worked in that industry and he saw that time and time again. And he wanted me to have a stable job, as you want your kid to have. I understand that now that I have 2 kids myself. So working in education was a very stable job. You go in, you have a job for 30 years if you want it. But and then I went in and told him, guess what? I'm done teaching after 17 years. He's like, what are you gonna do with your life? I'm like, I'm gonna do a podcast and book travel. Yeah. Once I picked him up off the floor, I said, I think I can do this. I think I got this. I'm betting on myself. And he said, okay, we'll see. And it's worked out great. So yeah, it's one of those things. You can even scare your parents when you're like in your mid 40s. And hey, trust me, scared myself. And I think it's good to have a good scare sometimes late in life and bet on yourself. I didn't know how that was going to go. I took a chance, and it's worked out awesome. It's good. It's good to wake up every morning and just know that you got to bet on yourself every single day and work really hard. I love working hard, and it's because of your support that we can do all this together. So thank you for that. Anyway, well, where am I going with all this? Anyway, we're at the end of the school year. So I hope that you guys are having a great, pre-Memorial Day here. We're getting ready for the barbecue weekend here in the States. So as we move into the unofficial start to summer, the pools are going to open up. Maybe you have a pool in your backyard. I used to have one at my old house like 15 years ago, more than that, like 20 years ago. I bought a house way back when that came with a pool, like an above ground pool. It wasn't real super fancy. I was never a pool person. I will not have a pool again. That thing was so much work, and I had to always buy these chemicals up at the pool. I liked it once I had it. Like, it was fun because this was like when I first started teaching. I'd go out there and like jump in the pool after work, and it was great. I'd take my radio out there, listen to the ball game, just float on a raft. It was the bomb. But man, that thing was A, expensive because I had to buy all those chemicals, and B, you're always vacuuming the thing. Like, I felt like it was a second job. I was always working on it, and I was always pouring these chemicals, which was money, into the pool. But it was fun. But I don't think I'll ever have another one. But if you have a pool, hope you're getting ready to open it and enjoy it. I just didn't have, I didn't have anybody to enjoy it, a whole lot with, so it didn't make a lot of sense. Community pools, that'd be more fun. Actually, just go to Disney. That's what I say. Um, so maybe you're getting ready to grill this weekend. We are going to be going to our high school. They have the state semifinal baseball game. Our high school baseball team is doing pretty well. We're one of 8 teams left in the state. So we're taking on the DeSmet Spartans, which that'll mean something for Dennis. Dennis knows who that is. So they are playing at DeSmet. So Saturday we'll be right there at the corner of Ladue Road and 270 cheering on our Francis Howell Vikings. So hopefully they will take a victory. So that's all we have planned for this weekend for Memorial Day. But let us know what you guys have going on in the comments. Patreon.com/BRGuestPodcast. Mallory's out of school Friday. Tomorrow's her last, today's her last full day of school. And of course, I got a text about 15 minutes ago. Dad, can you run up my history book? I totally forgot it. It's under my bed. First question I have, I didn't text her back, but this is just what I'm asking in my head. Why is your history book under your bed? Why isn't it either in your backpack? Or why is it not with you at school? I will ask her that when she gets home. I loved history. Apparently she didn't because it's just under her bed. But I have to get that up there by 12:30. I guess she'll have some kind of consequence. I should just probably let her suffer the consequence if I'm a good dad, but I'm trying to be nice because it's the end of the school year. She has half days tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, and then that's it. Senior's last day is today at the high school. So yeah, end of the school year. Can't believe it. Already done. Pam goes until June 2nd. She's got till the end of next week. So she's kind of bumming that she's not out yet. All right. So last week, speaking of the end of the school year, that was always one of the things I anticipated. I looked forward to the end of the school year way more than my kids. And I taught 6th grade. 6th graders looked forward to the end of the school year. And I'm not lying. When I was a 6th grader, I looked forward to the end of the school year hard because I was one that loved to play outside. I mean, we would play wiffle ball in my neighborhood from the morning. We'd get up early. We did not sleep in. We were not Ricky. We wouldn't sleep in. We would get up, grab a bowl of cereal, and start playing wiffle ball. And we'd play till lunch. We'd get some lunch, chill out a little bit, then go out and play more wiffle ball, have dinner, and play wiffle ball at night. We'd have a light in somebody's backyard, and we'd play wiffle ball until we had to go in. We play kickball sometimes. We were always outside. So we were always looking forward to the end of the school year. So we'd have that, like, it seemed like we got 3 months in the summer back then. Now, as a teacher, it seemed like we only got 2 months. It seemed like school summer shrunk when I became a teacher, but maybe it was just me. All right, so let's hit the feedback from last week on anticipation. What did you guys think? What do you anticipate in your life? So here we go. Dennis, speaking of Dennis down in Texas, says, I know how you feel about having your entire family under one roof, Mike. My son just finished his first year of college, and now he is home for the summer. His school isn't that far away, and he came home often, but knowing that he's going to be here for several weeks is so incredible. As for anticipate, well, let me just stop there. I saw a picture of my buddy that he was in our wedding. Dave, he taught across the hall from Pam and I. Pam and I taught 6th grade next door to each other for years and years. Dave taught 5th grade across the hall from us. Great friend of both of ours. His daughter is a little bit younger. So his daughter just finished her freshman year of college. So I saw on Instagram, she has come home from her college. I saw a post a few days ago. Now, if you've ever had a kid come home from college, you know what this picture is. He was excited that she was home, but his house was full of so much, pardon the word, crud all of her junk was everywhere. And they keep their house. They're pretty much like minimalists and they keep their house like super spotless. Her stuff was everywhere and the house was just a mess because she had all of her clothes and books and shoes and just all electronics, just everything was just scattered. But he was just so happy to have his daughter back home that it didn't matter. But when I saw the picture of his house, which is so normally like perfectly neat, it was such a juxtaposition because he loves that clean house, but he didn't care at that point. His girl was back home. And that's because I remember when Paige came home with all of her stuff, we're like, oh my God, like I can't breathe. All of her junk is back home. This stuff is everywhere. I can't handle having all this crap everywhere. But we didn't care because Paige was home. And the thing is, like, it never goes away. Like when they go back to school, like 75% of stuff doesn't ever leave your house. Like we still have stuff from her freshman year of college, and she's living in Chicago now at 26. We got to get rid of the stuff. You guys want to come over? We'll have a sale. St. Peters, Missouri. Come on. We got lots of stuff, lots of Mizzou gear, lots of women's basketball stuff. Anyway, back to Dennis's comment. As for anticipation, you're so right. I've been listening to you, Scott, and Pam talk about the BOGP Cruise for weeks now. First, I'm really excited for you all. Second, it really hit me today that I'm missing all the anticipation and planning that you're part of the cruise and vacation experience that I'm doing right now if we didn't have to cancel our summer vacation this year. Anticipation is also why I always try to have another vacation scheduled before the next one happens. It always helps to have something to look forward to after the current vacation ends and just in general on a day-to-day basis. That is a great point, Dennis, that when you leave your current vacation and don't have anything else on the books, that is a sad, sad thing. That's why I think I like, running isn't, always the happiest thing in the world, right? But when I leave for a race, I know that like, okay, when I leave for the Dopey Challenge and I'm done, I come home with my medals, but I usually know, okay, well, I'll be back for Princess in like 6 weeks. And after Princess, I know, well, I'm going to probably be back for Springtime Surprise. And then I know, well, after Springtime Surprise, I'll be back for my summer vacation with my family. And then I know after that, I'll be back for Dopey. So it's kind of a cyclical thing. Like I know I'm going to be back, so it's not as sad as it used to be. But I remember when I used to go down just for vacations with my family, and it was like a once a year thing. It was man, I'd be super sad on the last day. I mean, like more sad than I should have been. Man, when I was walking out of the Magic, because we always left the Magic Kingdom was our last day. When I was walking out, and we drove home too, that even made it worse, right? And we would go to the parks the last day, and we would stay until like we'd almost stay till closing sometimes because I just didn't want to leave. And I remember like we'd drive to like Gainesville. We'd drive to like Gainesville and get a hotel and stay like at some cheap hotel in Gainesville, spend the night, and then drive the rest of the way home the next day. And it was like the most sad thing ever. You're right, Dennis, because I knew we'd come back like the next summer, but it was never on the books because we weren't like in that much back then. But now having like the next trip on the books totally makes it better because you can immediately say, yeah, but next year we're staying at Caribbean Beach, and we can start talking about it, and it's concrete, it's real. And I think that does make it a lot better. Good call, Dennis. Great email. And I hope you have fun with your son having everybody home because that is real. Next comment is from Jody out in Cincinnati. And before I get to Jody's comment, thank you to her Reds. And we're going to talk about this in just a second, but they had a tribute to two folks in the St. Louis Cardinals organization last night before our baseball game, because the Cardinals played the Reds last night for the first game in a series that we're playing this week. They put a tribute on the scoreboard to our beat writer who passed away this weekend, Rick Hummel, and we talked about Mike Shannon. God, I love Mike Shannon, the Cardinal broadcaster. They put a memorial up on the scoreboard, and they put a spot in the press box with a rose in memory of those two gentlemen, and the Reds did it right. So respect to the Reds. You guys did it right. Okay. Jody says, hey, Mike, great episode as always. Oh, by the way, we'll see Jody here shortly. I think it's like 30 some days. No, I can't be right. Yeah, it is. I got to check because I check in at 38 days. I got to be on this. I loved hearing you talk about anticipation. It's one of my favorite things about vacations, Disney or other. Talking it over with the family about the plans and building up excitement. And let me tell you, we're quite excited for the BOGP Cruise. Other things we have a lot of anticipation for in our house is birthdays. I try to make each birthday special and something to look forward to celebrating. It can be as simple as them picking their favorite meal they want me to cook, or excitement over plans with friends, or figuring out when we can all gather for an extended family dinner. I love seeing their excitement when their birthday is approaching. After all, it only comes around once a year, so you have plenty of time to build it up. I love that. Birthdays. Mine's always around Thanksgiving, and I always get a chocolate pie from my mother-in-law from Helfer's Bakery, which is a place in Florissant where we used to live, and it's always awesome. And I'm anticipating that pie right now because it's that good. Actually, it's so good, this chocolate pie, that we get 2 of them, and they're expensive. And God bless my mother-in-law for buying these things. One of them is put out on Thanksgiving, right? But people dig into that one. So my mother-in-law knows I like this pie so much. She gets 2 so that one is not touched. It is my pie. And I get to have that over the Thanksgiving weekend. So I get it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That one is just mine. Nobody touches that one. God bless Elaine, my mother-in-law. The other one, everybody can have on Thanksgiving for dessert. She also gets a banana cream, and I think I could get some other pie. There's 3 pies at Thanksgiving, and chocolate is one of them, but my other one's put away. Nobody gets to stays in the fridge. So I love that, Jody. Yes. And I can't wait to see you on the cruise. Len, my buddy out in Maryland, Sparty, says, so the 2 short-term things I'm anticipating is the birth of our 3rd grandchild in early June. Congratulations. And the receipt of an email from you on May 31st that you nabbed us a beach club villa. I'll do what I can. May 31st, I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. But remember, I'm one person. But I do. The folks who got in first are going to get the first emails. I promise you. And the patrons are going to get the first emails, by the way. It's tense waiting to know that we have a reservation. Long term, we're looking forward to that January trip and also getting on the books a June trip to Disneyland to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary. That is a lot of Disney anticipation. Yes, it is, Len. And I'll get to you guys on May 31st. I'll do what I can. I can't promise it'll be there, but I promise I'll get yours on May 31st. I take care of my friends first. You take care of us, we take care of you. It's right. What's that old saying? You scratch my back, I scratch yours. That's what we do. I like taking care of my friends. Thank you, guys. Len, congratulations on 40 years. That's amazing. And the grandchild, man, you are living life well. I appreciate that. I'm just glad for you. I'm happy for you. All right, Tricia up in Wisconsin. We're going to have a race there in the National League Central, her Brewers and my Cardinals. Am I weird? This is what Tricia says, because I am, I guess. Am I weird that the only thing I have positive anticipation is planning vacations? My wedding, it was more for my family, hubby, and I aren't big into parties. Pregnancy, hated it. I'm hoping my view of big events will change now that I'm a parent. I do have joy when I see my kiddo getting excited about things. I like to look forward to stuff. I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I don't know, Trisha. We'll have to see. Is anybody else like Trisha and you only get excited for planning vacations? I get excited for the end of the school year, even though I'm not a teacher still. I get excited seeing Mallory excited and Pam excited. Now I get a little depressed that I don't get a summer vacation anymore. So that's kind of sad. But, I made that choice. I'm living my dreams. So I can't complain. All right. Michelle has the last piece of feedback here. I was nodding along with your sentiments of having Paige home and enjoying every moment. The feeling of sadness when they leave, but the proud feeling of them doing great things is spot on. Loved reminiscing about your drugstore toys. I remember all the ones you mentioned and now want one of those water spring games. I also remember getting car bingo there and activity books with invisible ink for road trips. I completely agree with having things to anticipate. I always like to have something to look forward to on the calendar. Trips are great, and the planning really is a major part of the fun, but smaller things like a favorite meal or show or sports game makes me excited to have something to look forward to as well. Go Panthers. How about those Panthers? And by the way, Kachuk is a St. Louis kid, went to high school here. So there you go. Because he was in high school when Keith Kachuk played for the Blues. So you're welcome. There you go. And I know the Celtics are out, but Tatum, he's St. Louis kid too, by the way, and Celtics. So there you go. Okay. Thanks for the great feedback. You guys are awesome. Michelle, hope everybody's doing well down in South Florida. Another one I got to meet a long time ago. We've met many times. So if you have feedback about this show or any show, patreon.com/BRGuestPodcast. This little podcast, it thrives on the feedback. So please take the time during the week to leave some. Okay, today's show is going to be about the era of newspapers. And I'm talking about this because I mentioned this just a second ago. Over the week, and it keeps happening. And I mean, the Cardinals can't catch a break. The Cardinals are playing well, the baseball team. Thank goodness we've turned it around. I think it's because I brought the old plastic Cardinals baseball helmet and put it in the studio, hidden back behind me here. I don't know if you saw that a couple weeks ago. But, and I used to wear that back when I was a kid playing wiffle ball. We all wear these plastic helmets. They were uncomfortable, but they look cool. But our beat writer for the Cardinals for 50 years, so he was my beat writer my entire life, Rick Hummel. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame in the writers wing. Passed away suddenly over the weekend. And I'm telling you, the Cardinals cannot catch a break. We lost Tim McCarver, who was a Cardinal Hall of Famer, and he called a lot of our Cardinal baseball games. Of course, he called a lot of national baseball games too. He passed away this past year. Mike Shannon passed away just in the past month, our longtime radio guy. And then our beat writer for the Cardinals passed away early Saturday morning. And I used to read Rick Hummel in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch as a kid so much. And just one of the things, again, Mike in the Midwest, so just a little bit about me. One of the things I wanted to be as a kid, first of all, I obviously wanted to be a baseball player. I mean, a lot of my friends, we all want to grow up be baseball players. But I mean, I really wanted to because my dad, he caught a professional baseball pitcher in the off season. So I had access to professional baseball players. Like I remember hanging out with the likes of Pete Rose, Mike Schmidt, Tug McGraw, Steve Carlton, Ozzie Virgil. I hung out with a lot of the Philadelphia Phillies in the early 80s because we would get to go into the clubhouse, and down at spring training in Clearwater, John Denny was the pitcher that my dad caught in the off season. He lived in St. Louis. So he went to church he was in the Sunday school class with my dad. And so they would work out in the wintertime because my dad was a cement mason and he didn't work in the winter a lot because once it got too cold, the concrete couldn't be poured. So my dad would meet John at this college. He would pitch. It's called Maryville University. They would pitch in the gym. A lot of these other ball players would be out there. Andy Van Slyke. And so I was just a kid. I was probably in like third or fourth grade. And sometimes my dad would let me skip school and just hang out with the guys. And it was pretty awesome. So I really wanted to be a ball player because it wasn't inconceivable. So that was what I wanted to be. But another thing I wanted to be as I got into high school was I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be like a sports writer because I like sports. And so in high school, we had a school newspaper like every high school has. I went to Hazelwood Central. Our mascot was the Hawks. And we had a newspaper called the Hawk. It's called Hawk Talk. Real original, right? And so I wrote for the Hawk Talk. I wrote for it, I think all 4 years. You weren't really supposed to write for it until you were a junior, but I was in a lot of honors classes and stuff, and it was really about who you knew in high school. Let's face, I don't know if it was like this in your high school, but it was about this in our high school. If you were an athlete and if you were personable, a lot of rules were very pliable at our high school. And so I wrote for the Hawk Talk because I got good grades in English. I had good grades. And so I wrote for the Hawk Talk, and I got to edit the Hawk Talk later on, like in junior and senior year. And we had like I forgot, what was it called? It was a one-time thing. Like you published at the end of the year. It was like it was like a poetry thing. A literature magazine or something where it was like for creative writing. So like I remember writing some poems for that. And then I helped edit the yearbook a couple of years, but I was really into the journalism thing, like the journalism department. And I thought that was what I might want to do, go into a writing career because, that's a way to be connected to sports and current events and even technology, because like that was where you got to see some of the first Macs. I mean, that was kind of neat to type on a computer and stuff. And, I didn't really pursue it, but the reason I liked it was because I read the newspaper every day. I was one of those kids who I loved baseball. And this is, this was before you could pull up a smartphone. Obviously, smartphones didn't exist. So what I would do is we got the Post Dispatch delivered every day to our house, as one of the things we actually did. And you would get the box score. Now, you might not know what a box score is, but I was a huge sports fan. You would go to the sports section of your newspaper and you would look, and it would give you all the stats of all the players. It would even tell you the weather of the game the night before, tell you like who the umpires were, tell you all the stats for all the players. It would say Tommy Herr, who was our second baseman in the 80s, had 4 at bats. He got 1 hit. He walked once. He struck out 3 times, and it gave you what the stats were, told you every person, told you the attendance of the game. It was, real small type, like probably like 5-point type. And it told you every game for every major league, team. So you just like plow through all these stats for all. It was awesome. I loved reading the box scores. And you could do this really you could just dissect the sports section, because you didn't have like Sports Center even back then. This was how you found out about not only your team, but all these other nuggets of information about other teams around the country. Now, here's the other thing, getting back to Rick Hummel. He was our beat writer. So he would give you the scoop of what was happening with your team. He would give you, what was happening in the clubhouse, with this new kid, Vince Coleman, this new kid they brought up that's super fast playing left field that was going to take Lonnie Smith's spot. And he would give you he was basically the liaison between the fan and the team. And he was such a good writer. He could take you and give you access and help you understand what was going on with Whitey Herzog's baseball team. And he really did that for me throughout my, childhood, even into adulthood. And he was such a great writer. And to lose him this past weekend, suddenly, we didn't expect that. He retired last year. He was still doing it up until through 2022. It was another big loss. And I got to thinking about newspapers, like the physical newspaper. I haven't held a physical newspaper in ages, but I remember I love newspapers, because even over at my grandparents' house, we used to go and get the physical newspaper every Saturday. And I think I've mentioned this on Mike in the Midwest before. We would go to and I don't know why we had to always do this, but my grandparents would always go to a hardware store on Saturday nights. It was called Central Hardware. And if you're from St. Louis, it was down at the corner of Newhalls Ferry and 270. We'd drive there. We'd pull up to the very front of the Central Harbor, and there was a guy out in front that would sell the newspaper. It was the weekend newspaper, so it was fat. I think it cost like 50 cents back then. You give the guy 50 cents, he give you the newspaper, and we'd go home. And the reason my grandma and grandpa loved the weekend papers, it had all the ads. So you get all the ads for like Kmart and Target and Venture, Famous. And I don't even know, because the stores were closed on Sundays in Missouri back then. You had to go to Illinois to shop on Sundays, because it was called the Blue Law. But you get all the ads, you got Parade with like a entertainment magazine. But I used to love the sports section was my jam. I used to love the comics, the funnies, because that was color. Used to love Beetle Bailey, used to love Family Circus, used to love The Far Side was my favorite. And I used to love, there was a section in the St. Louis Post Dispatch called Everyday. And I used to love that, because that was kind of just like a lifestyle section that would told you about just, like if pickleball was the latest thing, it would tell you, about the game of pickleball, or podcasting. It would tell you about, just wild topics, new things that were happening. Like it would tell you about that, like about BBSing back in the day, about computers connecting through technology. That'd be something you would learn about in the everyday section. Or running, it would tell you about, stuff like that. So, and of course I would read the news section, but the news sometimes was heavy, for like a kid, but I'd scan through it because I still enjoyed news. But I loved the newspaper. But when I got to thinking about it, over the past 24 hours with Rick Hummel's passing, God, I haven't picked up a physical newspaper in ages. But here's the thing. I have an iPad, and I use my iPad constantly as a second monitor for my MacBook when I work. I use it, it's called Sidecar, and I use it for like a second monitor. I'm always on my MacBook when I'm doing my work for the travel agency. But I do the Apple One bundle, because I need all that backup space for the family, because Mallory has an account, Pam has an account, Paige has an account. And like we all, Apple Music, when you got 3, I use it, Mallory. So it ends up being something that you just get the whole bundle. And the thing is, one of the things you get is that Apple, what's it called? But it's a part of the bundle is you get access to all these magazines and newspapers. And the iPad is an amazing tool to read newspapers and magazines. Like as a kid, if I would have had like 3 subscriptions to magazines at once, I would have thought I was so rich. I would have thought I was so rich. With my iPad right now, with that bundle, I think I have access to like 300 different magazine subscriptions at once. I can't possibly read those, and a ton of like newspaper subscriptions. And it's crystal clear. You can zoom in. You can, some of the stuff's interactive. It's amazing where technology again has taken us with reading newspapers. However, at the same time, I still miss the newsprint. I miss the feel of it. And I'll say one more thing because I know we're going long. It's supposed to be a mini podcast. I don't want to keep you too long. We did that story of the Mike in the Midwest about school libraries. And my good friend Mark Yerkes up in Chicago kindly sent me a book about this Bat Boy experience. And I got to dive into it. It's sitting on my nightstand and I'm going to read it. I've just been super busy the last couple of days. But I opened it up and immediately smelled it. And it smelled just like my elementary school library. I mean, it took me back instantly to North County Christian School and the library right next to the sanctuary at that school. But the thing is, like, it's a tactile thing, right? It's like the feel, the smell, I mean, it jogs your memory so much. So part of me wants to grab a newspaper tonight, like, because they still sell them, I guess. Like, I want to go get a Post Dispatch and like sit down and just read it and see what it's like. Not on my iPad, but on a paper, like on paper, on newsprint, out of my deck or in a chair and feel it. So here's my question to you. Do you still read a newspaper physical, or do you read it on a e-reader, on an iPad? What are your favorite parts of the newspaper? What are your memories of the newspaper as a kid? What's your connection to that? So give us that for next week. Let's talk about it. Let's go down memory lane together. And most of all, let's take care of each other. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your support. It means a ton to us. And I hope you have an awesome week. So you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon. See you guys. Have a good one.